Let's go.
Die hard, die hard, die hard.
If you're wondering,
Yay.
Ian isn't outside in Europe. That's
And
a
he's,
green screen background. He's
you
at
don't have a
home.
horn. Okay,
Right.
cool. Right, yeah.
No, the building is just perfectly centered behind him,
Yeah.
which is how
And I
we
see
make
you've
all of
managed
our
to grow
tourist
your head
photos.
back.
Let's talk about Die Hard.
Oh
Also,
my
let's talk about
gosh,
this
let's talk about
t-shirt
Die
that used
Hard.
to be Neil's and now it doesn't fit him.
Yeah, damn, damn, damn. I love it.
He got this shirt and his friends started rating things on a 9 dam scale. 9 dams being the best. So they
Obviously.
like eat a food that's like pretty good but could be better, and they're like, "Oh, this is pretty good. This is probably
Six
about like
stamps.
4 out of 9 dams." Yeah, because one
That's
dam
awesome.
still obviously has to still be good.
Uh-huh.
It's just not that good.
I
Because when you,
see.
yeah, yeah, if you experience something, you're
So,
like, damn, like good.
can I say that Die Hard is like a 9 out of 9 dams?
Sure.
I don't think there's any other way to
Kind of a
qualify
yeah, kind of a hot
it.
take there. This
Oh,
underground movie that, nobody else really likes it.
no, it kind of flew under the radar.
Yeah.
Real quick, I'd like to talk about the fact that in our Fight Club video, we didn't like mention the ending of the movie at all. He shot himself in the face.
Oh, yeah.
That's how the movie ends, and he lived?
Yeah. Well, it kind of went like through the neck rather than through the brain.
Yeah.
But yeah. And I like that
Yeah.
Marla comes in all concerned. No, like she's mad at him and she's like, what the hell is wrong with you? Oh my gosh, what the hell is wrong
What's
with you?
wrong
Like immediately becomes concerned because he's clearly been shot point blank through the head.
with you? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's funny. I liked the line, you met me at a very weird time in my life. That was funny.
that's true.
And I really liked that he didn't stop the explosions. Everything blew up and all the buildings crumbled to the ground, and that was just great. I
Mhm.
love to see that.
He only stopped the explosion of the building that he was in, and that was it.
Yay, and they're holding hands.
Yay.
And that's the end. I I just was thinking about that the other night when I was going to sleep. I was like, we didn't even talk about how the movie ended. It was like a pretty significant
Yeah, not
part of the
really.
movie.
Most people just watch like the first 4 minutes of the movie.
Yeah. What more do you need? Okay, so Die Hard. I
Yeah.
did not think about an acronym,
I thought
but
about
maybe.
I thought about making one, but I didn't come up with any letters. I
Oh,
just
but
was
you
like,
didn't.
we should probably do that.
Okay. Ian, do you know about our gimmick?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
He
You'll,
correctly guessed all of the letters for Fight Club.
Sick. Very cool. Our minds are aligned. All
Mhm.
three of us. It's not that they were
Obvious letters.
obvious letters. Yeah.
Yeah, soap. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Um, so this you had never seen Die Hard until this week, right?
Correct.
What did you think?
It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
It seems like the point was to be fun. I mean,
Yeah.
Bruce Willis up to this point was a comedic actor, if I remember
Mhm.
correctly. So anyway, he's like the reverse John Hamm in this state. I
Yeah.
think this was Alan Rickman's first movie as well, which is
Yeah, it
crazy.
was. He
Yeah, that's
almost turned
really
it down
crazy. Because
too.
he seems such a polished performer in this movie. Like you're like, that's Alan Rickman,
Yeah,
obviously.
that's how he popped out of the womb, fully formed. Alan
Exactly.
Rickman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he almost didn't want the role because he didn't want to be typecast as a villain forever. And then he was. He was good at it though.
Yeah.
The
And he
man
did
knew
it.
how to be vile.
Yeah, and I feel like all of his villains are not just like playing the same note every time, you know.
No, yeah.
Like he's still cast as the bad guy, but every bad guy is a very different person from the last. So that's
Right, like
kind of
you've got
nice.
this one where he's like German Terrorist, that's good. You've got the movie Gambit, which I like, where he's like a capitalist, just kind of a mean boss.
Hmm.
You've got his role in Love Actually, which is the most evilest movie of all time, and also he
Yeah.
plays the most
He
evilest
plays
person
the
of all
most evil
time
person because he cheats on Emma Thompson.
on Emma Thompson.
Yeah,
Hello?
crazy.
Unbelievable.
He's
Yeah, no.
also in Quigley Down Under, where he plays the villain because he's British.
True. Even though it's in Australia.
Yeah, it's a Western with American heroes and British villains, but it's in
In
Australia.
Australia. That's
Yes.
awesome.
Let's
You've
be
mentioned that
honest,
movie to me
Australia is the
before.
51st state.
Yeah.
Well, probably 52nd, right after Canada.
Alan Rickman's second most famous role after Die Hard. Quickly Down Under.
And just before his role
Galaxy
in
Quest.
Galaxy Quest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He isn't a villain in that one. He's just a cantankerous actor, but
Yeah, I would say that the main villain in that one, for most of it, is Tim Allen.
yeah, that's true.
Justin Long is in that movie.
Yeah.
I remember that every now and then. He should be in more things. He's
Sigourney
charming.
Weaver's in that movie. Alan
Sigourney
Rickman's in that
Weaver,
movie. Sam
Rainn
Rockwell
Wilson,
famously is in that movie.
Sam
Rainn
Rockwell.
Wilson.
Let's everybody let's give it up for Sam Rockwell.
Yeah. Tony
Come on.
Shalhoub. I mean, it's an
Say
all-star
less.
cast.
Honestly, what thing isn't improved by Tony Shalhoub?
That's what I always say.
Yeah, audience, any suggestions? No? Crickets.
Hmm.
Nothing.
Hmm. Exactly.
Hmm. What thing is not improved by Sam Rockwell? Nothing.
So
I'm trying
Die
to think of an
Hard.
acronym. Die Hard. Yes.
Right. I think sometimes for like action movies, we just kind of cop out and say that the E stands for explosions, but I do think we could mix it up and put S for splosions.
Explosions. That's
Explosions.
kind of fun.
It's fun
Because,
because famously, this is a fun and entertaining movie.
yeah.
So it's explosions.
I was going to say
They,
Steyr, but it's
Stein.
Steyr.
Oh.
Steyr is the guy who made the gun that the one bad guy used because he had to hunt down Carl.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, anyway.
Nice. I just thought you were saying Stein because you're like, I don't know, generic German
German.
name. Yeah.
I was gonna say S is sicko mode, but I also like explosions. 'Cause
Those are pretty tied.
I think that's one of the most
I
famous
think,
things that we have talked about on this channel is how much we love gratuitous violence and explosions.
hmm.
Across the board. That's a
You
guaranteed.
guys haven't watched John Wick, right?
No, a dog dies.
Yeah, sort of.
It
It gets
sort of
resurrected.
dies.
It
It
gets
dies off
resurrected
screen.
for the love of Keanu Reeves, obviously.
I've watched this movie twice this week. I took extensive notes, and I can't think of any other letters.
I was thinking
Usually we're
we could do sicko mode, but do it for M. So it's like mode, sicko. Like hotel,
colon sicko.
bravado. Yeah. Mode,
Mission
sicko.
impossible.
Exactly.
Cool. All right. Yeah, I like that.
I was thinking M for misogyny because we saw how the women were treated, but
See, I actually thought it wasn't that bad in this one. I
Yeah,
was like,
because
damn, the woman has a personality?
yeah, his wife is like in charge of stuff. She's pretty cool.
Yeah.
that's true.
And
Yeah.
they
I,
give
She
I
the
only
was
spent like 10 minutes with exposed cleavage, so it's
yeah.
better than
And
everything else pre 1990.
yeah. And they gave the pregnant woman a sofa. So how's that
yeah.
misogynistic? They were literally physically supporting women. Well, a woman.
And this movie passes the Bechdel test because two named women do have a conversation about another woman's about her pregnancy.
Oh, yeah.
So,
They're having
yeah.
a conversation about another woman, not a man.
There you
Nice.
go.
That's good.
Um, tank top. Tank top.
Hmm. Explosions, tank top, Europeans, mode, sicko.
I was honestly not expecting a whole lot when I watched this movie for the first time. I watched it for the first time on Christmas Eve, immediately following It's a Wonderful Life, which I made my parents watch with me in the theater. And so would say that those are two very different viewing experiences, going from It's a Wonderful Life, where you get the warm fuzzies, and then you go to Die Hard, where it's warm, but that's just because you're feeling the heat of the explosions coming off the TV.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit of a
Well,
different vibe.
and because it's a certified sexy gay Christmas classic, you're feeling the heat of Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman, obviously.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I thought this movie did really well was that it had like a lot of dominoes that it set up early in the movie, and then it knocked them down later on. I think we described it the last time we talked about it as a Chekhov's firing squad.
Just like thing after thing after thing. My dad came in,
Yeah,
well, he
like,
watched some of it and then he had to step out and then he came back and he was like, catch me up. And at this point, like things have just started happening. Like Bruce Willis is hiding in the stairwell, like right at the beginning.
uh-huh.
And my mom was explaining things to him, but from the perspective of like, this is why the costumers made this decision, which was pretty funny. He's like, right. So he was just cleaning up in the bathroom, so that's why he's in the tank top. And then you remember the guy from the airplane recommended that he take off his shoes to like center himself when he gets there, therefore barefoot.
Yeah, like that's
So,
perfect. In a world free of the weird focus on feet that we have today, this movie in the 1980s was like, we're just gonna have our main character be barefoot for the entire time. And yeah, it will play like a major role in
yeah,
the
it's
plot,
gonna
the
be
fact that he's
important to the
barefoot.
story later,
Yeah.
but we're gonna set it up in the first scene. He's talking to somebody on the airplane,
Hmm.
and then, an hour and a half later, you're like, he
Oh,
And that's the whole movie. They're
owie.
like, hey, we're gonna mention this offhand, and then later it's gonna all fall into place perfectly.
Hmm.
Well, the first dude he kills, he tries to take his boots, and he's like, "I've killed the only PMC that wears size nines, right? I can't wear
Yeah.
this."
With
It's
shoes
funny.
smaller than my sister. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
he spits on him.
Yeah.
And then he dresses up his body in a Santa costume and sends him down the elevator. Awesome. He's got the best sense
He's
of
sick and
humor.
twisted. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
I'd like
like,
to get this out
welcome
of the
to
way
my sick and
early.
twisted mind. I'm like the Joker.
We live in a society. I would just like to say for the record, uh, the ACAB does leave. It's like that meme, the astral projection meme, the ACAB leaving my body as soon as I start watching Die Hard. In this fictional world, no, I can't even say that. I was like, in this fictional world, cops are cool, but that's not even true because 90% of the problems that he has is because the cops in
Because
this
of the
world
LAPD.
suck
Yeah.
balls.
It's just him and Reginald Bell Johnson. Bruce Willis and Reginald Bell Johnson are the only two good cops,
That's true. And
at least in the movie.
Sergeant Powell is a desk jockey because he shot a 14-year-old kid. So, you know,
Which does go to show how fictional it is, because he didn't get a commendation.
Yeah, he should have been promoted. It's also a little bit like a little funny that his resolution at the end of the movie is that he gets to finally kill somebody again.
Right.
yeah, he shoots him like 5 times. He
And everyone's
empties.
like, "Yeah!"
We got the triumphant music
Yeah.
coming up.
It's such a
There's,
sign of the times.
yeah, yeah. So if I remove the part of my brain that thinks critically about these things,
Then this movie is perfect. And if you
yeah.
have the part of your brain that thinks critically about things, then you're like, well, it's almost perfect.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is kind of the only way to justify like this is the reason that Bruce Willis can do all of this stuff, right? He has to like work for the government, the military, law enforcement to some extent. Because otherwise it's like worse, I guess.
Yes,
Yeah.
if he's just a random guy
Yeah.
who somehow has like
Plus,
tactical knowledge and carries a gun.
you're
Yeah, and
right.
you're like,
Yeah.
whoa,
It
hey.
explains his tactical knowledge, right? It's the
Yeah.
Yeah.
difference between the protagonist of Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4. You know.
Yeah, and everyone always says that.
Yeah, exactly.
What I really liked about him too was, oh, McCain starts with M.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So does
a lot of missed
McLean.
and that's his name.
Yeah, because
Yes.
McCain is the one who
Not
lost against Obama in 2008.
Right.
that's the guy. Yep.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
The one that Trump doesn't like because he got captured.
Yeah, so we're not talking about him.
No,
John McClane is the main character of this movie,
correct. Bruce
True.
and
Willis plays
that's
John
So
McClane.
I
who.
would like to
Mhm.
see an edit with John McCain.
That would be funny. Everything exactly the same, but they just kind of like put John McCain's face on Bruce Willis.
Yeah, they like deep fake it in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be fun and
BRB,
not
buying a
horrifying.
Dolly subscription.
Yeah, it's a very scary idea,
Yeah,
but it's funny enough.
could be something.
Yeah,
I was gonna
could
say
be
what I really
interesting.
like about John McClane is that he is a mostly normal person. Like he's just
Mhm.
a street cop who just happened to get caught up in like shenanigans. You know, he's not like an Arnold Schwarzenegger type where he's like superhuman, crazy OP.
Yeah,
Like he can get hurt
yeah. He does get hurt repeatedly.
lots of
Yeah,
times. Uh-huh.
yeah.
And the whole time you're like, I every
There's no
decision that
way
he
he
makes
wins.
makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, like you can totally follow his line of thinking for everything. Like I've watched a couple videos, not cinema sins, get that out of the way, but there's
Obviously.
one channel I like where what's it called? Pitch meeting where you like
Oh, yeah. My dad
you know
likes
the one.
those.
Yeah, they're
Super
they're
easy,
funny and I
fairly an inconvenience.
fairly an inconvenience. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I like about him is because for the most part he tries to like meet the movie with like a sense of respect, which I like. The one for Die Hard, he kept pointing out all of these like inconsistent analogical decisions. And I was like, oh yeah, well, yeah. But when you're watching the movie, you don't think about these things because it makes complete sense the way that John McClane is thinking and the situation that he's in. And I like that because like
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense with like hindsight and you're not in a crazy high adrenaline situation in a
Right.
building that's being taken over by terrorists
But
and
when
you're
you're in the
barefoot.
movie, like you want to be in on it and be
Yeah.
in his head the whole time so you can feel the intensity of what he's feeling. He can't like sit back and be like, "Well, next week when I'm reflecting, what am I gonna hope that I did?" He's like, "I have C4 now and I'm gonna drop it down the elevator." Like
Yeah. I do
yeah.
not have I don't have a flare. I don't have any way to signal to this cop that I'm up here. What I do have is a German corpse. That's going out.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Yeah.
Bada bing, bada boom. I'm from New York. I love him.
Yeah. Deep dish pizza, no thank you. I'm from New York. Yeah, no, but I what I really appreciate about this movie is like you said, he isn't like the undefeated Schwarzenegger type. Like he has some clear vulnerability from the get-go, right? So you relate to him, even though he's a cop from New York City, you're like, oh, he's kind of just a guy too.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he gets kind of sick on the airplane. And when he's getting ready in the bathroom and he takes off his shirt, he has a real scar. That's Bruce Willis's actual scar all the way down his arm. And they're
Huh.
not pretending that it's not there. It's like this guy clearly can be hurt. So the
Hmm.
whole time, instead of it being like hyper masculine, it's very like it's a story of masculinity, but also of vulnerability in the same character, which I really appreciate. And I feel like you don't think of that when you go into an action movie. You expect hyper masculinity without the vulnerability.
This is interesting
Yeah.
because I think this is the earliest case I can think of an everyman hero. Um, because like if you watch Rambo, which I think is after Die Hard anyway, I don't know. I don't know the timeline here. But Sylvester Shy gets hurt, right? But it's not he's never in any real danger, right? Like the pain that he feels and the injuries he takes are to make him look more badass in slow motion, right? And
Mm.
there's never any threat where y'all haven't seen John Wick, but even though he's a super soldier, there's a clear risk. I actually see a lot of influence from Die Hard onto John Wick, but y'all haven't seen it, so
Yeah,
Well, that's the
that's
crazy
interesting
thing
though.
too, is because Die Hard was so iconic and revolution that it did just essentially create this whole new genre.
yeah.
Like yeah, we talked about it a little bit before, but the idea of just changing the setting, like we do Die Hard, but on a plane. We do Die Hard, but in a mall. We do Die Hard, but
But
in
it's
a
Macaulay
house with a
Culkin.
kid for
Yeah.
Christmas. Yeah. Yeah, they like it just exploded into its own whole new thing. Going off of your point too, Olivia, with the like it's physical vulnerability, but it's also emotional vulnerability too, because you can tell he kind of hates himself a little bit.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's estranged from his wife and he sees her and she admits, I have missed you, potentially opening up the door to reconciliation. He's like, oh, so interesting how you
So
drop my
you
last
miss
name.
me, but you're going by your maiden name. Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
it's maybe a conversation worth having, but his timing is all wrong, so he comes off really
The way he brings
combative.
it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Because he
immediately after
does
she
appear to realize that he's the problem in the relationship, right?
Yeah.
exactly,
Like
exactly
from the beginning that
immediately
there's
after she leaves.
nothing that he can think of to solve the problem. Like he just keeps accidentally making it worse. And you get the feeling that that's
Yes.
what's been happening for the last 6 months that they've been separated and probably before that. And that's why they were okay to separate when she took a job, thousands
Mhm.
of miles away on the other side
Yeah.
of the continent.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So you
And you
see
could
some
see that
physical
immediately.
vulnerability, you see some emotional vulnerability in a way that he's not like Dwayne The Rock Johnson, who has in his contract that he will not lose. He
For,
cannot play a character that loses a fight.
yeah. And that
Yeah.
I feel like the fight they have too adds a lot to the emotional stakes of the movie because it's not only, oh, he needs to get back to his wife and live for their kids. It's, oh, he needs to get back to his wife so he can apologize to her. They need to reconcile. Like
Right.
I read a like a story of the from the I can't remember if it was the director or the screenwriter. I can't remember who, but he had gotten into an argument with his wife and they were driving home just after having had this argument and then they got into a car crash. And it was bad enough that it was like scary there for a minute. And they both were okay, but he's like it totally opened up my eyes because like you're in a near death experience and you realize how small all these little arguments are. So that would, he intentionally put that into the movie that they were having a fight right before this all happened because that makes it that much more impactful
Right.
than if they had a perfectly healthy relationship and we're like, yay, so happy to see you. Then it's like, okay, you've got nothing.
Now
Like,
there's
yeah,
another layer of like unresolved tension.
yeah,
Like maybe he
yeah,
saves her life, but he still has to also save their marriage.
yeah.
Like a deeper, yeah, there's a lot of emotional investment in this character and in his relationship with his family.
And I'll say this right off the bat too. I love Holly so much. Again, my expectations for like, oh, main character's wife in an 80s movie, okay. Like
Yeah,
they
pretty
the
low.
standards are in hell,
Yeah.
but right away she's like a very prominent figure at this company. They owe 90% of their success to her. Like they're
Mhm.
throwing a party and they're like, yeah, no, Holly's the reason like we got this deal. Like she's crazy cool, she's competent, she keeps her head under pressure. When she talks
Mhm.
to Alan Rickman, she's like, I think you're disgusting, but I have a favor to ask of you. I'm going to do it very professionally. And you can tell it's because she has to talk to like condescending men all day. And
Right.
it's like, this is no different for me.
Yeah. How do you feel? How do you think I feel clocking into work every single day? Oh, an evil man.
And he's very simple with her. He's like, you know what?
I'll
I like your
compromise with
moxie,
you.
kid.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's like, oh, you make a good point. I'll start bringing the people to the bathroom. She's like, that's all. Thank you very much. And then
Mhm.
it's like, I love that whole interaction because it's just, she's very composed and he's
Mhm.
so slick and more beautifuler than anyone has ever looked.
That's true.
Real quick to so the guys who did Mystery Science Theater, they have their own like spin-off company called Riff Tracks, where they essentially do the same thing. They just riff on movies. And sometimes they do like blockbuster ones. And so I looked up afterwards to see if they had done Die Hard, and the main three guys hadn't done Die Hard, but one of their like employees had written his own little riff for it. And his description of the movie was Bruce Willis has his obnoxious big-haired bitch of a wife get taken hostage and there's only one logical course of action. But instead of kicking back and watching TV with a couple of beers, he decides to save her ass. And it was like so weirdly hostile and aggressive towards Holly, who
It's super weird. Well,
is
I
like
feel like she's a
genuinely a
very
cool character.
she's a very sympathetic character too. Like you understand, she is also struggling with, is my marriage worth saving? Is there anything that more that I can do? She obviously cares about her kids and also cares about her
Yeah.
career. And those are
Yes.
hard to balance. That's something that again is very relatable to a lot of people. She's like this everyman character of like, how do I balance a career and family and my husband not being there to pick up, like I can't have any slack because there's nobody else to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, she's not a damsel in distress.
Yeah.
Like, the situation is distressing, but she's just like,
Like, well,
no big.
we'll figure it out.
Yeah. She's so cool. I really enjoy her. Yeah. So I thought that was really weird and pretty telling about the mindset of the person who wrote the
Right. It's like somebody
wrote the
who like
description.
hates Skylar White too.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
whatever
Scarlet
you're
White.
watching, the hyper masculine macho man is always the winner and the hero, and his lame, dumb, ugly wife is always the villain and a loser. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like
Famously
maybe
true.
tell something about their like larger opinion of gender dynamics and whatever. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe.
Who's to say?
Something. Yeah. Um, Argyle too is in this movie.
Yeah. And he's kind of the unspoken hero, I would say, because
Yeah.
he punches Theo in the face,
Yeah.
and
Which
that's
starts
kind of
with a
cool.
T.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Mhm.
And it has an E too.
Yeah, it
We were
does.
short on
Yeah.
letters. We could do Theo. Like, what was I gonna say?
Well,
Oh,
I really like Argyle because he's just kind of there for the whole thing, but he does get his little moment to shine. But my mom saw him on screen and was like, "Oh, I bet he's gonna save the day." Like a little bit, but not
yeah.
completely. He just gets his own little like part to play, you know.
Mhm.
And also, he's so funny.
Yeah. And
He's
every
great.
kind of intense movie always, needs a little bit of comic relief. And so it's nice when we get to jump back to the parking garage and he's just having the time of his life drinking champagne and listening to R&B like by himself for 3 hours.
With the bear.
Right.
He sets the bear up with his own glass.
Yeah.
Like he's having fun. He's calling his girl.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
sounds
I
like a
love
time.
Argyle. And that's another one of those things that they set up is the fact that they have CB communicators. And he's like, this limo has everything. CD, CB, but they don't even wink at you. He just
Mhm.
mentions it offhand.
And you're just supposed
And
to
it's like,
remember it.
were you paying attention?
Hmm.
If you were,
It's
you'll
a
remember.
surprise tool that will help us later.
Yeah. Yeah. So the main character's awesome because he is relatable. Um, and kind of hates himself a little bit. All of the side characters are awesome because I mean, for all of their own unique reasons. And then we get to watch a bunch of German terrorists get exploded.
I think the casting, not the casting, the writing of the antagonist is interesting because this is the late 80s and they're not Russian and they're not ideologically motivated, right?
Hmm.
It's utterly apolitical. It's just a fun romp. You write Hans Gruber as an upper class German dude, so you can write a villain who's intelligent, um, as opposed to having to stick to your Russian tropes that they're just warmongers and brutes and whatever, right?
Hmm.
Which is obviously not true, but and
But it was the late 80s.
yeah, and the movie aired in what, 88? So,
Hmm.
I mean, the Cold War is almost over at this point. Americans don't really hate Soviets that much anymore, right? It's not the
No,
60s. So,
we won the hockey game.
yeah. And it's not even
Yeah.
1983, you know.
Yeah.
A lot happened in the Berlin Wall is only 3 years out from coming down, 1 year out from coming down. Anyway, Premier
Yeah.
Gorbachev is about ready to hold the flag down.
Yeah, he's just about to go on mud wrestling, Weird Al's Weird Al's TV show.
Yeah, like they're only terrorists, right?
They're
That's the label
posing
they
And they're
as
not even
choose.
terrorists.
terrorists.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
you have this
exactly.
idea
They're
of European
pretending.
terrorists, what that's supposed to be like, but in actuality, they're playing with your expectation of a terrorist in order to get away with the greatest heist of all time, which is
Right.
sick. It's a heist movie.
This is one of the rare heist
Yay!
movies where I'm not 100% on the role of the people pulling the heist.
Mhm.
And that is only because the framing of the movie makes it so that you are naturally rooting for John McClane. And I'm going to say it's like barely, he
Mhm.
barely wins because again, he's sick as hell. He's
Yeah.
so cool. Um, he's not wearing any shoes, which means he's super sexy. No, I
When
was
he's
kidding.
like,
I'm sorry.
I'm gonna put on my Quentin Tarantino hat for a moment.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you've got Alan Rickman, who again is the prettiest person who has ever lived. He's wearing a nice suit. He shoots people sometimes, but it's like in a classy way. And
He does
Yeah.
he
he
just
does
wants
a fair to
iconic.
middling American accent.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and we mentioned this too, that it's fun that he the whole time is a person with a naturally British accent doing a German accent that's pretty good. And then he on top of that has to do an American accent. So he's not doing like a straight American accent, he's doing a a German person doing an American
Yeah.
accent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Which
it's
is
like
awesome.
it's
I love when
weird.
characters have to
It's like you
act.
can tell that yeah, you can tell that John McClane already kind of knows who he is but is
Mhm.
willing to kind of suss it out anyway, like have a conversation with him, and isn't convinced because his accent like isn't quite right. He's like, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah. And they both have
It's
so
just
many
weird.
he does. Like his cadence is off. Like the
Yeah.
words, the sounds are almost all right, but it's just the way, like his inflection is weird sometimes. But like
Yeah.
the scene reveals so much about both of them, right? That John McClane is naturally like not trusting, but that
Mhm.
Hans Gruber also knows enough to have looked at the like company directory beforehand and pick a name. He's
Mhm.
like, I'm Bill Clay. And you see in the directory William
William
Clay. So
Clay.
you're like, oh man, Bruce Willis isn't going to know.
Yeah.
He's tricked him. But like, you see,
Yeah.
Hans is well thought out enough that he would have planned that. Like, he just has all of he's detail oriented. And then
Mhm.
John McClane is just a New York cop who doesn't trust nobody.
Yeah.
Oops. You think I'm stupid? Hooah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We learned
That's a
so
really
much about
good
these
scene.
guys.
We do. And then it comes back later too, right, where he's like, oh, it's all, the man upstairs. And he keeps coming
What were
back
you
to like,
doing
well,
upstairs?
why were we up there? What were they doing upstairs? Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
again how every line, even the offhand ones, every prop, every setting always has like a full circle moment.
Yeah.
Like you get
But
closure on
it doesn't
even
feel like
later
they're setting it
conversations.
up for that. It doesn't feel like they're turning to the audience and going, wink, wink. Remember, like
Yeah.
it feels natural enough in the moment that when you remember it later in the movie, when it makes sense, you're like, you feel smart for remembering it.
Yeah.
So it's like helps the audience feel engaged because every time I watch it now, I'm looking for more of those things. Oh, the other thing with that scene where he's talking to Hans is he offers him a cigarette and Hans holds it like not like an American. He holds it in like a very European how does Ellis a Eurotrash kind of a way. And
Hmm.
that's fun. So like that's another thing that John McClane is going to pick up on because he
Hmm.
smokes like an American about 15 packs a day. He knows
Yeah.
your like cigarette habits, I guess.
It's good for every growing boy to have a cigarette habit.
Famously true.
Yeah. And that's one thing that New Yorkers and Europeans actually can agree on.
Yeah. Yeah, one rare opinion.
Speaking of Ellis, I'm obsessed with this character. He's so funny. The most obnoxious,
Yeah.
self-righteous person you've ever met. But you don't want him to get shot in the face,
No.
but you know that it's gonna happen and he just keeps digging himself deeper into this hole and you're like, Ellis, come on. Like shut up. But I just love how like he's so involved with himself and he says the stupidest things and he's clearly doing
Yeah.
cocaine off of Holly's desk.
Yeah. And how rude.
And he's obsessed with her and she's like, mm, cute, like I just
Yeah.
love so much about him, like his weird affectation on the words that he says sometimes. He
Yeah.
just really exaggerates vowels and he's like just so pompous, but clearly inadequate. I just love that he's such a good character.
So what
He is.
happens when you refine a sales bro through an MBA and then just take the little distillate off the top, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that was in his character description, like on the script?
Yeah, I think that they had a recipe. I think so.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you. When he was first on screen, I was like, I'm gonna hate this guy,
This guy is so
and
insufferable,
you
but you
don't.
love him.
You
Yeah.
really do. I adore his character, and I think the main thing that they did to save him is because when he goes in to talk to Alan Rickman at first, he's like, "I can give you John McClane," and my first thought was he's gonna give
He's
him
gonna give up
Holly.
Holly. Yeah.
Yeah, and he doesn't. He says John and I are friends. And like he's kind of a creep to some extent and respect her enough that he's not going to give up his friend.
Right. Yeah.
Like yeah,
He'll happily give up he'll happily give up the man in the way though.
Did you become a character in Animal Crossing there for a moment?
Anyway, I think what she was getting at is that Ellis respects Holly enough to not try to put her in danger and to kind of like he almost has a playbook of the right thing to do, except that of course he's wrong because only John McClane is right. And also, he a little bit is like, if I get John McClane killed, but I don't give up Holly, then I'll still have a chance with her.
True.
Well, maybe get. Oh. I was gonna ask for any last words, but too
Bye,
late.
Felicia.
Well, do you have anything else to say?
Uh, I don't know. I like the bottomless machine guns. Those are fun.
Yeah, those are good. Well, it's like this is the rule of any movie is that you can't run out of ammo unless it's for comedic or dramatic effect.
Yeah.
And so they really do that in this movie. They're like, McClane has infinite bullets, unless he's giving the gun to Hans Gruber to shoot him point blank, and then there won't be any.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is funny because otherwise, all of their like handling of the weapons and stuff was really good. They
Hmm.
got all the fire rates right in post, and all the
Fun
German
fact,
dudes slapped their MP5s.
Yeah. Just like you do.
they also engineered uh guns to fire blanks that were as loud as real guns, which is why when you see Alan Rickman fire the gun, it kicks back and he always flinches.
Mm.
And
Because it's
in the
really
scene where John McClane is under the table and he shoots that guy in the balls. He shoots the guy to death in the balls.
yeah, because the
That's so
guy's like,
fun.
next time you have an opportunity to shoot somebody, don't miss it. And he's like,
He's like, I
yeah.
bet.
Yeah, and then he does
That's
shoot him in the ball.
awesome. That's the funniest way to kill somebody.
Thanks for the advice.
So when they were filming that scene, he was shooting so many guns under the table. He did go deaf in one ear because of the sound of the
Because of the
guns that they
sound, and
fired.
he was under a table.
Yeah, so the sound like
It's like right there.
I
yeah.
have always loved how people in movies never wear hearing protection when they're shooting, and it never seems to affect them. So,
It
Hmm.
didn't affect him in the movie. It did affect him in real life.
Yeah.
yeah.
So maybe they should have,
That's called
incorporated that a little
method
bit more.
acting. And yeah, they probably should have been more careful. But it was the 80s, they didn't have like regulations.
No, Ellis wasn't doing prop cocaine. He was doing
He was
real
doing
life
actual
cocaine.
cocaine. Yeah. That's
I do love,
probably true.
yeah, I would not be surprised. I don't know if you guys talked about this already before I got kicked out, but I like that just any given white guy on cocaine has enough confidence to talk to a what they assume is a terrorist.
Right. And they're like, I could talk him down. I'm in sales. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he comes in like he has all his lines to rope somebody in. Like, it's not what I want. It's what I can do for
Can give
you.
you.
Yeah. Right off the
Yeah.
bat,
And
he's
I
pulling
love
in these lines to like make you feel like you trust him and make you feel confident in his abilities, right? But it's like so clearly like a sinister salesperson, you know?
yeah.
Have you
And
ever met
they go
somebody
to
who
shoot him
like will
immediately.
walk into a room and like introduce themselves to everybody just out of like they're genuinely kind and they want to meet you versus somebody who
Yeah.
walks into the room and introduces themselves to somebody and you just know that they like recently went to a seminar where people were like and people who are good with people always want to like get to know other people's names. You know what I mean? Like they had to be taught.
hmm
You have to learn people's names. You have to look people in the eye. You have to shake hands with people. So they're
hmm
doing it because they went to the seminar and not because they just are genuinely like want to know somebody's name and want to look somebody in the eye.
hmm
So Ellis has that vibe of like he has all his lines rehearsed. This is
Yeah.
how you're supposed to
He did
treat
summer
a
sales.
potential business partner or a potential customer, right? And again,
Yeah.
he just has, yeah, he's just very overly confident.
Yeah, and he is, you can tell he, like you said earlier, he's pompous. He's that confident already, but then cocaine confident is like
Hmm.
crazy delusional.
And
That's
then
awesome.
like
And they don't
high
see, they,
stakes, adrenaline confident, and he has
hmm
a chance to maybe be the hero. I mean, yeah,
Get John McClane out of
arrogance
the
levels
way.
through the roof. Yeah.
Yes. And I, I love that they immediately see through all of this.
Hmm.
Alan Rickman is like, "No, don't shoot him yet. Let's, this will be funny."
Yeah. Let's hear him out. Let's get him a bottle of Coca-Cola.
Which he chugs just seconds before he dies, and I do respect that. If you're gonna go out on a high note.
Yeah. With a full glass of Coke, not just a sip.
Yeah, do you think he requested like Coke and they misunderstood? They brought him the soda instead of like a brick. I also do really like that his death genuinely affects John McClane.
Hmm.
Like he's kind of an arrogant dick, but and again, this is where you have to suspend your disbelief that a New York cop would be upset at any loss of life, but like he feels responsible for it, you know.
Hmm.
He's like, I tried to talk him out of it. You know,
And he tried
and there wasn't.
to reason with Rickman too.
Yeah,
No, 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 leave him alone. He doesn't understand what's going on here, right?
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
He's in over his head and thinks that he isn't. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, like when he says, "This isn't radio. This isn't television. This is radio. Put the gun away." Like he doesn't think he's in any real danger at the moment,
Right.
which again is
He's doing a
crazy
performance.
because like, dude, they shot your boss. They've already killed people. Like,
But he's going to
it's
be
not
the
like you
exception
think
because he's so charming. Yeah.
he's the main character, and it's like,
Hmm.
ooh, that was your first mistake because you're
Yeah.
not
No.
Bruce Willis in this movie,
Yeah.
unfortunately for you. Yeah, very funny.
Yeah. But he does there's like a weird line in the beginning that's a little bit uh, when Bruce Willis first meets like the first European and he's like, "You can't kill me. Cops have rules." And he's like, "That's what I've been told." And you're like, "Whoa, hey." What's that supposed to mean? Like it's kind
Yeah.
of a killer line unless you like think about it and you're like, "Whoa." No, actually cops should have rules. Like most
Ooh,
of the time,
ah,
this is the only exception. Like you should be following the rules.
this is it. Again, you've got to be
But it's like
exercising
it's
those
cool.
suspension of disbelief muscles.
It's cool,
They're
but
working overtime.
not really. Yeah. But then throughout the rest of the movie, he does spend like most of the time that he's like on the radio with Hans, he is like advocating for people's lives. Like even when the
Yeah.
LAPD comes and he's like, "You are doing everything wrong. You're going to get people killed. You're going to get yourselves killed," and they don't listen and they do it anyway. And then
Mhm.
it happens, right, where they are putting themselves in danger. And he's like, "Hans, let them fall back. Like you made your point." He's always
Yeah.
like trying to save people, but can't because he's just one guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is where I think the 80s idea of like cops and regulations comes into play, right? Like because Sergeant Powell is down there and he's like, they got the terrorist playbook and they're pulling it out line by line.
Hmm.
He's like they're doing everything by the book, which is the wrong thing to do. And that's the whole mentality, right? Is like if you follow the rules, then people get hurt. You have to be
Right.
able to think outside the lines in order to actually save people's lives. You've got to be able to think critically.
Yeah.
And it's like this is the perfect mindset for an 80s action movie and not real life. Oh my gosh, that's why there are rules.
Right.
But
And you still like, but you resonate with the idea of like somebody who's in charge of a large organization doesn't want to listen to the this little pitiful cop that he doesn't know, right? Obviously, he's
right.
going to do things his own way and he's not going to listen. He's going to say, "I have the book. I wrote the book. I know
Mhm.
what I'm doing," you know. And so there is
I'm
that
well read on
challenge,
this. I
like,
could probably TA.
yeah, exactly. Like their wrong assumption is that it's okay for cops to do whatever they want, but their correct assumption is you can't just go into a situation blind because you think you know better than the person who's
Yeah.
actually there, right? So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like an interesting, they're kind of right. But if you think about it too much, you're like, whoa, dude,
Yeah, exactly. It's like John
they
McClane is
should
a
be
cop.
following the rules.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
like the whole time you're like, ah, he's a cop, but like, yeah, the whole time. So it's like if you take away that, then the entire law enforcement system is like bonkers ineffective because
Mhm.
he calls the emergency number and they're like, "What are you doing here? This is the emergency line. Get out of here." And he's like,
Like,
But
why do you think I
terrorists?"
called? Like,
Yeah. And she's like, "I'm going to have to report you." He's like, "Do it if I'm still alive." And
yeah,
I love that because they they really wrote that line pretty well of being like, yeah, no, there's the system's crap.
yeah, yeah.
And there's,
And even for like he is somebody who is a part of this system and typically would have been on the other end of that call, but now he also still has to be faced with the like ineffective modes of the system that he's a part of.
Well, this is why it's
Mhm.
important that he is not in his jurisdiction, right?
Right.
There is nobody he can answer to, and therefore his agency is unchecked.
Actually, with Powell too, he only lives because he did the cop thing of like, I don't really want to check it out anymore.
Right. He'll
Like,
walk down the hallway and
I'm
it's a
gonna
little too spooky and he's like, "You know what? Whatever. It's Christmas
I
Eve.
get
I don't mind."
Twinkies in the car.
Yeah. For my wife.
Yeah.
They're gonna spoil.
Yeah. They're already 12 years old.
John McClane is somehow the only working piece in this whole puzzle. Like the feds are evil, the media is evil, the cops as a whole are evil,
Hmm. And
except
then
for
there's like
John McClane.
the occasional good ones who are trying so hard to get anybody to listen to them.
Yeah.
Like this situation is bigger than you think. It's different from what you think. And it is because they have the whole terrorist playbook and the terrorists give them their list of demands like, "Oh, you have to free our comrades," that they read about in Time magazine. Like they're
Yeah.
just playing the role of terrorists so that they can get away with the greatest heist of all time, which again rocks.
Yeah.
But it's another
Very cool.
see, like even if you have all the things that you're supposed to do, you have the rule book that you're supposed to play by. Sometimes it is different than that. Sometimes the situation is not what you think, especially when you got there late and there's somebody
Hmm.
in charge and there's somebody else in charge and then there's somebody else in charge. Agent
Yep.
Johnson, no, the other one.
Yeah. That was probably the funniest part of the whole freaking movie.
Yeah,
I'm Special Agent Johnson. That's Special Agent Johnson. No relation.
no relation.
That's so funny. And then later when he's on the phone, he's like, "This is Agent Johnson." No, the other
The
one.
other one. It's awesome. I loved
Unparalleled.
that level of comedy because I feel like in any other movie they would just give them two different names. But the thought
Yeah.
process of like, Johnson's a really common last name. Wouldn't it be funny if the feds all had the same last name? And it works like it's realistic, where that could
Uh-huh.
actually totally happen, but in a very funny way. And again, like the stakes are getting increasingly higher, and you need a comic relief that isn't Argyle. Now we
Yeah.
have Agent Johnson and Agent Johnson, a family company.
Yeah, and it's not just the one-off joke, right? Like it's the
It
callback
comes
later
up over
with
and
the
over.
phone.
As
Yeah.
if they've really been partners for a while and constantly have to explain to people we
Yeah.
have the same last name.
It's so funny and I love that for two like big characters that are barely in the movie
Yeah.
only come in here to ruin everything and then get exploded to death 1,000 times
In a helicopter.
in a helicopter, which
Because
is
this is a good movie.
this is a good movie. How many times are we gonna have to say it? There are explosions.
The FBI is like, nah, screw them hostages. Give me an Apache gunship.
Well, they talk about
Yeah.
it too. They're like, what's the like what are we looking at here in terms of loss of life? And he's like, yeah, I figure we take out like 20-30% of the hostages max, but we get the terrorists. And they're like, yeah, you know what? I think we can live with that.
I like those
It's
odds.
fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
10 to
Yeah.
20 people out, but we get the
Yeah.
terrorists.
But hey,
So it's
it's
a
a
win.
terrorist because that way,
Oh
yeah, that it's a win.
my.
When people say it
Wahoo.
was just a necessary loss of life, it was an unavoidable loss of life. But at
Yeah,
least
yeah.
the feds won,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, to
Hmm.
reinforce our patriotism or whatever.
But not too much because again, they do get exploded so
Mhm.
hard. Like they're not meant to be the good guys or like admirable at all. They come in and they're sleazy and they're gross.
They're
They
just
take
an
over, think they
inconvenience.
know everything. Exactly. And then they blow up a helicopter and crash it into the side of a building. And
Making things worse over and over again. And well, and it's interesting, the
Maybe
like
this should
deputy
happen to
chief,
all of them.
the deputy chief is also that person, right? So you're talking to Al Powell and you're like, okay, maybe this guy could get some help. But then, of course, it goes to the person who's in charge. And it's like his only thing that he cares about is that he's in charge.
yeah.
But I think sometimes if you're in charge of a situation, it's not a good look for somebody to walk in, see the worst situation they've ever seen, and you say, I'm in charge here. Like, don't admit to
Yeah.
that, maybe.
Well, and it's crazy because it's like a Russian nesting doll of like competence, right? We've got John McClane there on the ground, barefoot, like seeing, he's like the all-seeing eye. He's got his fingers in everything and he knows what's going on. Then we've got 1 degree of separation with Sergeant Powell, and then we've got um the deputy chief, right? And you're like, this
Hmm.
guy's so incompetent, it's ridiculous. It can't possibly get worse. And then they get the raid guys in there, and
Hmm.
he's like, get those guys out of there. And you're like, if that guy's being reasonable, then like what has this world come to? It's such a bad omen that Rod is the smart one. Like,
Yeah.
you-
Yeah.
and then he's right. They get exploded. And so
Yeah.
then it like all trickles down. By the time you get up to the FBI guy, even the deputy chief is like, "Man, we're gonna need some new FBI guys." Like he's not even concerned about it because they were just so terrible.
And let's not even talk about the Fox 7 guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Local News 8.
Local News 8. First of all, there's a third Johnson in this movie on the news. But then, yeah, kind of this same thing, like the law enforcement are primarily evil and do a bad job. And then the same with the media, right, where they want to get the top story at the
Hmm.
expense of anybody and everybody's safety.
Yeah.
They go to Holly's house to interview her children.
And threaten Paulina? We don't get an update on Paulina. We don't know if like she better not have lost her job over this. That man threatened her. She was like coerced into opening the door and letting him
Mhm.
in. What is she, like what a rotten evil person. Yikes. they do have, I mean, like Ellis was kind of an insufferable character, but you still kind of liked him. But a lot of these like other guys are
Yeah.
just like,
At least he doesn't threaten to call ICE.
yeah, exactly. He somehow Ellis was the one who protected like a vulnerable female character.
Right. Well, because
Ellis.
he, under no circumstances, is going to give up Holly, whereas the news people, like, they just want to get more of the story and be the first people there and be the people who are in
Right.
charge of the narrative, right?
Yeah. Eat
So
your heart out,
they'll,
Channel 5.
yeah,
Not a lot of people just died.
yeah. Maybe that says something about like modern media. I don't know.
Yeah. You know what? One thing I really is I was watching this movie with my dad and he's like, one thing it's important to know, Whitney, giving me like a little history lesson, is that in the 80s, everyone was the bad guy. You've got the bad guys in the movie, but then you also have the police and the media. Those were always the bad guys in the 80s. And I really liked that they were not subtle about any of that, but especially with the like musical theme for the Germans, right? You see the truck on the road and you hear the most ominous notes playing you've ever heard in your life. It's like Ode to Joy but evil.
Ode to
And you're like, I
evil.
wonder if those guys are going to be bad. Ode to evil. Yeah. That's just great. I love a movie with subtlety, and I really love a movie without it. So the music is good, is what I'm saying.
I understand.
I have some notes written down if you
That's a sign
are
you're
you
not supposed
okay?
to read the notes.
I thought you
I
were gonna
guess
get your
not.
Susie Dent like microscope to read from the notes.
I haven't got one of those installed yet, but I'm working on it.
Hmm.
I really liked Takagi. Um, I also I like the stand-in for like the Nakatomi Corporation, being like the biggest company. Like they're like the Amazon of the time. And I asked my dad when we started the movie, I was like, are these the bad guys? And he's like, well, they're meant to be the Amazon. And I was like, so yes, they are, but they weren't even aware of that. And then Takagi says later, he's like, our project in Indonesia is meant to develop that region, not exploit it. And it's like,
Okay.
uh, and that's
Define
awesome.
define those terms.
Like,
Like,
mhm.
what does
Yeah.
that process look like? Yeah. And it is
I,
interesting. Yeah, they walk into the office and Hans Gruber says, "Oh, I loved to make models when I was a boy." And his first instinct, Takagi, is, "Oh, terrorists are here to stop us from doing this thing in Indonesia," which is interesting. Like if you
mhm.
had a project that like somebody was holding you hostage and you immediately assume, "Oh, it's because of that project." Maybe that's kind of a self-report.
Yeah, interesting. It's like how in I don't know if you guys heard about it, it kind of flew under the radar. There was a kind of a beef between two small rappers a little bit last year. One of them was like, "Hey man, you're kind of a pedophile," and the other one was like, "I never even talked to Millie Bobby Brown. What are you talking about?" And it's like, see,
See,
now no one ever
nobody
said
brought
her name.
her up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at all.
It is kind of like that.
So
Takagi is
yeah,
like the Aubrey Graham
Drake.
of 1988.
As if not enough people are saying that, we know. But I also really like Alan Rickman's response there. I keep calling him Alan Rickman Hans.
Well, yeah.
He's like, I know, I read about it in Forbes.
Hmm.
And you can tell he's just being kind of sarcastic about it. He's like, okay,
Yeah,
sure.
he has very
Yeah,
good
I know, I trust
humor in
you.
this movie. Yeah.
He does, yeah. You can tell he's very intelligent, very well read. And I really like that he is so polite. Like when he first meets Takagi, he's like walking around the room in a very threatening aura, listing off every single thing about Takagi's personal and professional life. And
Hmm.
then when he meets him, he's like, "Hey, how do you do? It's so nice to meet you. Come with
Yeah.
me. Let's have a talk." And he like bounces off, compliments his suit. He's like, "I could talk about like industrialization and men's fashion all day long." I love him so much. And it makes him way scarier as a villain, right? Instead of being like just the menacing violence.
Right.
It's not mindless. He's
He can
very
have
intentional with
this.
everything he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
this shift in character. So you know that he can
Yeah.
interact with you this way, but you also know that he's, yeah, incredibly dangerous.
Oh, one thing when John first makes it to the party and he talks to Takagi and Ellis, and then Holly comes in and she's like, "Have you met everybody?" And Takagi says, "Yes, he's met everybody." And he has not met anybody in that party except for Ellis and Takagi.
Hmm.
Like no one. And I just think that's funny. He's like,
He's met
"Yeah, no,
everybody
we're
important. Like he knows me and
yeah."
knows you. So,
So
but
again,
then
this
that
is an
also
evil
ends up
corporation.
being in McLean's favor later, right? That he isn't associated with anybody. As long as nobody gives up Holly, he doesn't know anybody there.
It's perfect.
Interesting.
And the fact that she has been going by her last name means that she's not in the directory, which means that her name doesn't come up with like
Hmm.
the
But
McLean
then
thing.
when they dox McLean, it still takes a while for Alan Rickman to make the connection.
Yeah, and because she had put the picture frame down on her desk,
Hmm.
because
He looked at it and was like, "That's a little weird," but didn't pick it up until later.
it's just,
Hmm.
nice.
Yeah.
I like all of these things.
It's nice to have so many like satisfying conclusions
Yeah, like we know the
throughout the
building's under
movie.
construction. That comes into play later. We know there's computers in this one room that comes into play later. All like every single thing they set up is delivered later in the movie. What I have here is everyone say thank you to Die Hard for John McClane's tank top. Heart Alan Rickman in long coat.
So true. And those are good notes.
Thank you. Yeah,
Just kind of the most important topics to
yeah,
touch on, really.
yeah. I I didn't really want to talk about any themes or
Any of the
motifs
kind
on
of
these. I wanted to leave room for
the more
cities.
technical stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Soundtrack, costuming, lighting, and of course, um, the- just, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do know. It's also important because John never sees Hans's face
Hmm.
until they meet. Like they have this like kind of flirty thing going on over the radio. They're walkie-talking back and forth, and it's
Hmm.
sweet. But they never see each other's faces. And I was confused the first time I watched it. I was like, no, he did. He saw him shoot Takagi. So I went back and rewatched it. He doesn't. He's just out of frame. He can't see him.
Listening. Yeah.
And that's great. He never sees Hans' face until he meets him. And he does his like, don't kill me. Is it working? Is it I love him. He's got no dignity. He's willing to fully commit to being a snivelly little whiny American boy.
To
And
get what he wants.
it throws John McClane off enough where you could see he does start doubting himself.
Yeah.
And he gets the upper hand eventually, but like it's a good enough performance at first. Like scrinkling up, crying on the ground. That's good. I like that Theo and Hans have like a little Theo and Carl have a bet on whether Takagi is going to give up the password.
Right.
Um, and that's cute. And then Theo is like, "You didn't bring me along for my charming personality." And Hans goes, "Haha, like they're a little family. That's cute. That's that's
Yeah,
great."
really, instead of making like however many hundred Die Hard sequels, they should have just made a prequel of Hans Gruber getting the gang together.
Yeah, that would have been so cute. And then we could have had more Alan Rickman. Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
would have been
like the
really
scene
nice.
like when they get the safe open and the doors open and like the light is descending from heaven upon them and we switch. It's like Theo, Hans, Theo closer up, Hans closer up. Like forever. Just like basking in
Yeah.
the beauty of this moment, even though you
Yeah.
know that it's all gonna fall apart in
Yeah,
2 minutes.
the bad guys aren't gonna win. It's an
Yeah.
80s action movie. We know this. But there is a part of you that's like, what if they did just as a little treat? Oh gosh, I just had a thought and I don't remember it anymore. Oh, I do remember it. It's Christmas deal. It's the Devil Miracles. And I liked that. Like, this is a very stressful situation for everybody. But he keeps it cool. He's like, I gotta, you gotta crack jokes every now and then just to keep the like gang calm, loosen it
Hmm.
up a little bit.
Hmm.
Carl's very understandably freaking out. He lost his brother. Um, and I also think this is important in an 80s movie to remember to never go after revenge. because that's always where the like weak link in the chain is going for revenge. You don't ever go for revenge, you will get killed or get got. Whether you're a
Yeah.
good guy or a bad guy, that's always like, unless the whole movie is about getting revenge,
Like John Wick.
like John Wick. Yeah.
Mhm.
Don't get revenge. Or RRR. You can get
Mhm.
revenge if you like spend your
If
whole life
that's the
going to get
whole
revenge.
movie. Yeah.
If that's the movie is to get revenge, then
But
that's
if the
awesome. And we're
movie,
big
like,
revenge fans.
yeah, if the plot is supposed to be we follow through with this plan and each get $1 billion, then that's
Mhm.
you gotta stick to that plot.
Yeah, if you go after the cop who killed your brother, then you're going to get killed to death. Not by that cop, but by a different cop who's going after a redemption arc for killing a teenager. Anyway, he shoots that guy in the balls. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, we talked about that.
So that I made sure to write that
Age-old
down.
story, yeah. We
Yeah.
all
Um,
know.
one thing I talked about with Olivia when we first mentioned the movie, is I've heard this argument for a while, like, is it a Christmas movie? Is it not a Christmas movie? And after having seen it, I do not understand what the argument is about because it absolutely 100% is a Christmas movie. It like thematically down to its DNA, this is a Christmas movie. Like
Yeah.
if as much as Home Alone, if not more so. There's
Mhm.
so many
There were
Christmas.
jingle bells in the soundtrack in the opening scene. I mean,
Yeah, there were. It's Christmas Eve. They're having a Christmas party. He
Mhm.
dresses the guy up in a Santa hat and lights. He tapes the gun to his back at the end with Christmas packing tape.
Yeah. I think it's just people have a very limited view of their definition of Christmas movie, where it's like
Yeah.
a feel-good Hallmark or something,
Yeah.
which is just a different kind of movie.
People are always limiting themselves. They live through invisible rules and they don't have to. Just open up your heart, say that Die Hard is a Christmas movie, and just feel the joy that comes with that.
Mhm. Observe how food tastes a little sweeter and colors are a little more vibrant.
Sun shines warmly on your face.
Mhm.
You make fists with your toes on the ground and you think,
Mhm.
"Thank you, Die Hard." Yeah, I just think that's funny.
Yeah.
I love when they kill the villain at the end of the movie, even though the villain is Alan Rickman. It hurt more than it usually does to see a villain get killed. But they actually dropped him too when they were filming that. They had him up in a rig
Mhm.
and they were like, okay, we're gonna drop you on 3. And they didn't. They dropped him on 1. And so he actually looks really surprised because he gets dropped.
Mm. They got him with that one.
They did. If you could surprise Alan Rickman with anything, it's by dropping him from 1,000 feet.
Yeah.
They actually dropped him from the top of the building. A lot of people don't know that.
He actually died for that role. Not a lot of people know that. Just like Harold Perrineau.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Romeo and Juliet. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was really good in a lot of different ways.
Hmm.
9 out of 9 dams for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we also watched the second one. And I don't have a lot to say about the second one because it's basically this one but at an airport. Like all of the same characters come back, including the reporter guy.
Well, yeah.
And that's so funny.
He's not gonna miss out.
No, even though he's just accidentally trapped on a plane with Helen McClane.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was maybe 5 out of 9 dams.
Oh, okay.
It's
That's pretty
still
high.
pretty good. It's
that's
still
still
entertaining.
More than
8 with
halfway.
rice.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't like if you like the first one, you're gonna like the second one, pretty
Mm.
much. It just wasn't as
Right. Well, the first one is just so novel, you know.
yeah, yeah. And the second one, they know they're doing this again. Everyone is like, how is this happening to us again?
Which would be the only logical reaction.
Right, yeah. And I have heard that after that one, all of the sequels just get way, way worse. So I'm not gonna bother with
I'm
those.
sure
But
because that's how historically it is when you make a movie that stands on its own and then it's popular, so then you think you have to make more just because it's popular. Usually it's a pretty strong decrease in quality.
This is
But
why all movies should be designed as trilogies, but have a finite ending in the first one. So you leave it
just in
open to
case.
two sequels, right?
Right.
Because it was originally written that way. But then if you don't succeed, it still stands and it's fine.
Like Star Wars
Like Star Wars.
or Spider-Verse, which are the only two good movies.
Yep. Maybe they've got sequels planned for It Ends With Us.
Maybe.
Yeah, a lot of options.
Which is interesting because you'd think they wouldn't. If it was called It Starts With Us, maybe.
It continues with us and then it ends with us.
Exactly.
But it ended with us.
But it already ended, so they would have to do prequels, which are typically less successful. Unless
Yeah.
in
Unless it's
the beautiful alternate universe in which we live, when they do the prequel for Die Hard about Alan Rickman's origin story, then that would have been a
Yeah.
great prequel.
And they don't like deep fake him. They don't like de-age someone else to like and Photoshop Alan Rickman's face onto some other actor. In this world, Alan Rickman is still alive and well.
Mhm.
They don't even de-age him at all. And it plays this role beautifully and he's perfect.
Mhm.
I miss him every day. I was gonna say also, unless you're Rogue One, in which case it's the perfect prequel and the best Star Wars movie. But I think it's impossible to achieve perfection twice. So yeah, not likely to happen again.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like Ian said, where this is fun movie. You watch it and you're entertained the whole time. And I like that they
Yeah.
keep kind of twisting like your expectations of the plot just enough that it keeps you engaged. There's always something going on that you want to see through to its end.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's nice.
yeah.
Any
It
final
really is.
thought? Oh. No,
Yeah,
you're supposed to say
so
something really revolutionary right now.
Oh, actually Ellis was the protagonist, and that's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. He was the main character. That's why he acted that way.
Yeah.
this is how Die Hard subtly hinted that Ellis was the real main character the entire time.
Yeah. No, the post-credit scene just had like Ellis waking up and he like sat up in bed and was like, "Whoa, that was a dream."
And it's the morning of Christmas Eve, and he's still gonna go to work and have the
Exactly.
party after work. And now he
Yeah.
knows how to
And then
save Holly because he dreamt it.
yep, and we know that's why the sequel was subtitled, it's Die Hard 2 subtitle Groundhog
Die
Day.
Harder.
Yeah. Die Hard 2 again? Yeah.
Die Hard 2 Part 2 Tokyo Drift.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff.
Die
Yep.
Hard 2
Oh.
Across the Spider-Verse.
Die Hard 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Mhm. Die Hard
Yeah.
dot 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 2.
Yeah, so like you said, Ian summed it up perfectly at the beginning. Fun
Mhm.
movie. So
So good.
basically, people could stop watching then. You could put, if you wanted, you could put in text like this is
This is all we're gonna say for the
it.
next hour and a half.
Yeah. Just to let people know. They usually
Yeah.
stop watching around 4 minutes anyway, but
Yeah, they'd be
Yeah.
fine.
They should have stopped making movies after this one, right? It's like
Pretty much.
music
I'm
in
literally not even
1990.
kidding about that.
After Rest in Peace, what was the point?
Yeah,
Yeah.
seriously. My personal feelings is they could have gone until 1999 because that gives us The Prince of Egypt in 1998, and that gives us Ravenous in 1999,
Mhm.
and The Mummy
And Fight Club.
and Fight Club. So that's it. That's all we
Yeah.
needed.
So they really just needed
Cut
it
it
was
off.
like 1988 was like the peak of cinema, and then
Yeah.
they just had a kind of a slow decline for 11 years, and then that's it.
Yeah. We had the first perfect movie in 1916.
Hell's Hinges, famously.
Yeah, and then no good movies were made until 1989, and then we're back up steadily, and then no good movies have been made
Yeah.
since
We could
2000.
make a timeline of all the good movies, and it's 5 movies from the 20th century.
Yeah. Like
Yeah,
famously the opposite of Allison's philosophy of only
right.
post 9/11 movies.
I don't really like old movies. Yeah. Ian, what would you say, like, what is your definition of an old movie?
I would say post Hitchcock is the cutoff.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because most people would say anything pre 9/11 is an ancient movie that's not worth watching.
Have you seen Casablanca? I mean, come on.
Yeah, we should watch Casablanca with Allison.
She couldn't even make it through Labyrinth.
I know.
David Bowie's in that
David
movie.
Bowie's in that movie.
Yeah, it's more of a fever dream than Casablanca is, though.
Well, yeah, but that's what makes it more engaging.
Yeah. Even though she did just dream through
fun.
it.
Yeah,
Normal style.
normal style. She fell asleep.
Yeah.
And she woke up at the end and was like, good.
I think she was out before the owl was off the screen.
Yeah. And to be
And
fair, it
granted,
is a
it goes
long
on for
title
so
sequence.
long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is like half
Yeah.
the movie. But still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a 1989 one. So,
No,
yeah.
1986.
Oh my gosh.
Labyrinth came out before Die Hard. Think about that.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So maybe 6 good movies have been made.
Hell's Hinges, Labyrinth, Die Hard.
Yeah.
Fight
Yeah.
Club. Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
it.
And that's it.
Hmm?
The definitive list of good movies. You're welcome.
I think I'm gonna do it. This is Whitney's perfect movie list.
Wow.
Yeah.
We haven't done one of those for a while because I still
Nope.
haven't made the stamp
Nope.
image, and I never will.
No.
You just have to
It's just
imagine
for it's just for pretend.
Yeah.
We could be doing this professionally for 15 years and we still won't do it.
it. No. It's more fun. Your imagination is so much more fun.
Yeah, I'm not gonna limit you by forcing my idea of Whitney's perfect movie stamp on you. Make it whatever you want.
Exactly. Make it one character from each of the movies that Whitney has said is a perfect movie. That could be fun.
That could be cool. Okay. Well, I better get going. I am sleepy because I woke up at 8 this morning. I even did that on purpose.
There's an 8 in the morning?
That's disgusting. Not on a Saturday on purpose.
Well, because the thing is,
only way
if I
there could
sleep
be an
in,
8 in the morning on Saturday on purpose is if there was some sort of tragic accident that had befallen you.
the horrible thing is because when I was a kid, I swore that I would only ever sleep in so late on weekends. But as an adult, if I do that, then I get like physically sick, which is, can we talk about how horrible and messed up that is? We live in a
Sleep is supposed to
society.
be healing. We used to be a great nation.
We used to be a great country. What
And
happened?
now, post 9/11, they don't make good movies anymore, and you can't even sleep in without getting a tummy ache or something.
No, it's awful. I sleep until 9, and my back hurts, and my head hurts, and then I can't sleep that night. And it's like, but I've been up since 9. It's been so many hours. And my body's like,
Not enough
So-
hours.
I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is I have the hardest life that anybody's ever had to live.
I think you need to develop an illness. Like if you become severely B12 and vitamin D deficient, that'll help.
I could do that. Yeah. I
Yeah.
am taking
Maybe
B12
become
and
anemic.
D, vitamin
Yeah,
D.
don't do that. Stop
So I'll
taking.
stop taking those.
Yeah.
Yep.
See if that
I'll stop
Maybe
taking
if
my
there's
Adderall
some
for
way-
sure.
Definitely stop taking Adderall because it like gives you energy and focus. Ridiculous. Get out of that. And if
Yep.
there's any way that you can take like the opposite of an iron supplement, so you can like make yourself anemic, that might help too.
I could do bloodletting.
Yeah.
You guys have a source on leeches?
You work for the government. Why are you asking us?
That's a good point. I'll call my leech guy.
The only drug you should be taking is melatonin.
that was my last thing that I was going to say about this movie that I did not remember to write down. Was that my suspension of disbelief was working overtime for this entire movie, but where it finally faltered was there at the end when the FBI guy is like, shut down the block, and they're like, we literally cannot do that. It will like it'll take so many like loops, and we've got to go through so many people and like levels of authority. Like we cannot do that from here.
Hmm.
And then it gets done 30 seconds later. I do
Right.
not believe that in any world. I
No,
like,
because definitely he made the
Especially
call.
not LA.
Yeah, he's like, gun to my head, shut down this block now. And the guy's like, okay, give me like 10 minutes. I have to make some calls. And then, like, the chain of command is still gonna be there, even if it's an emergency. They'd have to
yeah,
be, shut it down now.
yeah.
And
They
the
didn't even call the
crickets.
mayor.
They could have an intermission or something while you
Yeah,
wait for
they're
the
just
city
sitting
block to
there,
be shut
have their
down.
like the hot chocolates, just sitting
Yeah,
there, kicking
like
their feet,
kind of eating
waiting.
popcorn. They're like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick. I probably have time, right?
Maybe they start kicking the soccer ball around with the terrorists.
It'd be
That could be
nice.
cute.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's like,
no,
that way when you're watching it in the theater or at home, you have time to get up and pee because the characters are not doing anything.
yeah, yeah. Another thing that Indian
Because
cinema
we're
is doing
all having intermission
perfectly.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah, no, we had a coffee stain in the office back in it's like in the senator's office under his desk. He definitely spilled it. Um, he's like, this coffee stain just appeared out of nowhere, and it's like, did it out of nowhere?
It probably appeared out of a mug of coffee, is my
Yeah,
guess.
you're from North Dakota. You guzzle coffee more than a camel guzzles water.
More than a
Pretty sure I know where
European
that came
guzzles
from.
cigarettes.
Yeah. They just chew them. They don't even like it's not even chewing tobacco. They just like it's like a pencil sharpener kind of.
Yeah.
Um yeah, no. So we called and put in a work order for that. Not exaggerating, 2 weeks ago.
Hmm.
And it just got done yesterday. We called every day.
Hmm.
It got to the point where my boss was like, I'll just bring in baking soda and dish soap and do it myself.
Right.
And it's like, you shouldn't have to do that because there's literally like a whole department that's designed to do things like this. Like
Right. So
it's
that
not
you
like
don't
you're
have to.
exactly like this is literally their job. Like I'm not trying to be that person that's like, don't put your shopping cart away because then you're just creating more jobs. It's like, no, you're making the jobs for the
Harder.
already exist harder.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is the job.
Right.
2 weeks for cleaning up a coffee stain. But sure. Yeah, no, I believe that you could just shut down the power for a whole city block in less than 30 seconds. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, in LA. Yeah.
In LA
On
Yeah.
Christmas.
on Christmas. Come on. Yeah. Anyway, the government is ineffective. Don't pay taxes.
And that's an official message.
Girl, I live in Idaho. We haven't paid taxes since 1887.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but gay people can't get married there anymore, so I guess.
Anymore. They would move out
Oh.
anyway.
Wait, they never could?
No gay person living in Idaho is like, I want to stay and get married here.
Oh, well, I guess that's good. That's never been like a goal anyway, because they
Yeah.
just like are trying to repeal that legislation, which is fun because I'm like, don't we have other things to worry about at this point?
No.
Yes,
Are we
interracial
still
marriage.
on this?
We're starting with there's not enough gay people in Idaho. Like if they repeal it, not a lot of people will notice. And then they can get to the heart of the issue, which is black people. Always has been.
There are 7 of them in Idaho.
Yeah.
For legal reasons, that's a joke.
Obviously,
Only a
there
little.
are 9.
Cool.
Yes.
Well, I'm sure there will be something important that I forgot to talk about that I'll have to text you about in like
Yeah.
a week or so.
We'll just talk about it, whatever movie we talk about next. We'll just also spend half the video talking about Die Hard again.
Yeah, that's a pretty fun pattern that we've been doing is we talk about 3 main movies is the movie we talked about previously, the movie we're supposed to be talking about mostly now, and then
Mhm.
third mysterious movie. that
Mhm.
maybe we're talking about next week and maybe we won't talk about at all.
Yeah. Maybe we're just like mentioning it and then you're never going to hear from us again. And then maybe even if people comment like, "Oh, why didn't you make a full video about that one movie that you were talking about?" And we'll say, "What do you mean? We've never seen that movie."
Yeah, looking at you, Road Eldorado. Cool. Well,
Yeah.
thanks for doing this, guys. This was a lot of fun.
Yes, we should do this again sometime.
Yeah.
Like maybe not like too often, like weekly would probably be too much, but like occasionally we could put a little something together.
Yeah, no, yeah, I guess I wouldn't mind that if I can fit you in my schedule, but
Yeah, yeah.
sure.
Like I
Yeah.
don't know,
Wait for your
4
next
weeks,
David
six
Fincher
weeks.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta
Yeah.
schedule out. I think we should make like a master calendar for the entire year, so that way we can and give people advance notice. We're talking about this David Fincher movie on
Ah,
this date at this
we're doing
time.
Gone Girl.
Here's the
Let's go.
link. Like you like have
I
to be
haven't
there.
seen Gone Girl. I need to.
Yeah, we should probably do
Yeah.
Gone Girl.
Scott
And
Rosamund Pike in it. So,
yeah,
you know.
Name a thing that she has not made better simply with her presence.
exactly.
Yeah, that's
Jack
what I
Reacher? Just kidding.
thought.
She was the only good thing about that movie.
I believe it. Goodbye.